Good afternoon, Tom Ginn. G-Force. G is for gratitude. I believe gratitude is what I call the mortar between the bricks of life. You know, when things are going good, we always have a smile on our face, but when things are going bad, what do we turn to? How can we eliminate negativity? How can we get in a positive space? And I have found through my personal experience and the coaching and mentoring I've had, that's been the foundation of my growth is understanding the power of gratitude. And today I am so grateful for a very special guest that's coming in. And I'm awestruck. I'm excited at the same time. I'm nervous at the same time. But it's a colleague. We're both in the personal development and human potential industry, helping people better realize their fullest potential. And today's guest is well known. He's appeared before millions of people in films and television, radio interviews. And I'm really excited to have somebody this influential in helping people recognize their fullest potential. With that, I can go on. He sent me a very extensive bio, but I just want to bring in our guest today, Rex Sikes. Good afternoon, Rex.
Good afternoon, Tom. I am thrilled to be here. I'm excited at the opportunity, and it's just marvelous sharing the space with you and being one of the many wonderful guests you've had in the past. So to be included in that company, wow, I'm grateful. Thank you.
My honor, and I'm humbled that to have you on here today. And this is like we talked before we came on. This is just more dialogue, just free flow. I think as we go through here, people may have questions and may stop and address those and recognize people as they make any comments out there. And I just want to make sure everybody is. We already got somebody coming in real quick. Just wanted to. Mr. Brooker, how you doing, Mr. Brooker? Good seeing you. Thanks. Tag and share, buddy.
Hey there, Robert. All the best.
Yes. So I'm gonna just put a banner up here, make everybody aware to tag and share and that type of thing. So if I can find it, there we go. But Rex, a little bit of how I like to start here is just start your story. Where are you from? What brought you to where you are today? And we'll just have that conversation.
Well, today I live the life of my dreams. I own my time. I do what I want, go where I want, with whom I want, and but it wasn't always like that, and believe me. And I really kind of transformed my life at about the age of 25. But I started as a kid growing up in a middle-class family. I was raised by nuns in terms of parochial school. I grew up not really liking myself very much. And feeling, I think my parents, I don't think, but my parents loved me. They gave me a nice life, but I just didn't feel good about myself. And my dad would say, you have a dark cloud following you around. And so about the time I was 6, 7, I asked my mom, being Catholic, first off, I thought the priest had a magical connection with God somehow. And I wanted to be a mystic. I wanted to be a priest, not necessarily a Catholic priest, but I wanted to change somehow. And I didn't know how. So we had books in the house like the Bhagavad Gita and Think and Grow Rich and other thought leaders, East and West. And so I asked my mom if she would read me those. So Saturday afternoons we spent watching like Marx Brothers movies with my mom and different old time television. And evenings before I'd go to bed, she'd read me from these books. So started very young, kind of with this indoctrination process of the fact that you can do and have anything that you want. Didn't actually actualize it in many ways. I became a meditator at a young age. I got involved with hypnosis at the age of 11. My dentist was a hypnotist, practicing in his dental practice, but also otherwise. And a stage hypnotist who helped me. At that time, my dad took me out to see a show, and I said, "Hey, can I learn from you?" And I was a kid entertainer. I did magic and mind reading around the country, essentially. And by the time I was 25, I had a crisis. I had skydiving injury that I went to a doctor in Beverly Hills, and he misprescribed a combination of pills that should have killed me. It was a fatal combination of medicine that he didn't think anything of. I took it and survived. They literally called me a medical, a walking miracle. The fact that I didn't die was miraculous. But it wiped out my memory. I had no idea what I did. I lost all my friends. I screwed up my career, lost a girlfriend at the time. Just totally went completely downhill. Had amnesia for a great period of time. And I didn't hurt anybody. Fortunately, I actually drove during this time, but don't know how. I did. And but at any rate, people started giving more medications to try and calm me down, get me back to normal. They here, have a Quaalude, have this, have that, have that. So I started to become this walking pharmacy. And then I started to drink because I was so confused and everything, that my sister called my parents who were traveling and said, "You need to get back here. There's something wrong with, my brother." And so they came out, found me nearly at that point comatose, took all the pills and drugs and bottles and everything away, and were trying to decide if they should put me in a psychiatric institute, and took the distributor cap off my car and pretty much locked me in my apartment. I went cold turkey on the drugs and then felt so deeply ashamed and guilty and horrified that everything happened. Then I leapt out the window on my head trying to kill myself. I went 2 stories down, landed on grass, not on concrete. Story might have been different otherwise, and I fell over on the grass, and my first thought was, I can't even kill myself. I was so pissed. I was like, what the heck? I got up, I ran back around to my apartment. I'd locked myself out. I couldn't get back into my apartment. I was going to do it again. I'd keep doing it till it worked. And so my parents eventually had to leave. They had to go. And I didn't go into an institution. I tried to find some therapists and different things. And everybody wanted to put me on drugs. Here, you need this. And I go, no, you don't understand. I just was on drugs. I was prescribed medicine. I don't want more medicine. I got to do this without it. So I abandoned therapy after a while and decided to lock myself in my apartment to see if I could regroup, fall back into my Napoleon Hill and Eastern philosophies and meditative practices. And so I committed to sitting in a chair. I did that for a minimum of about 6 weeks, or a minimum 6 weeks, might have been longer, but where I sat in the chair, I would affirm, I would visualize, I would try and relax, I would use hypnosis, I would do all these things. And in about 3.5 weeks, I suddenly hit on something that started to work. And I started to change gradually and slowly. I started to understand, wow, I don't have to live the way I did. I can live a new way. And things began to shift. And so about 6 weeks, later, I emerged kind of like a butterfly, from a cocoon, but I more like a toddler. I didn't burst out like Superman going, I am king of the world. I was like, okay. And I won back my friends. I got back my career. I did everything because of the mindset that I had developed and the heart set that I developed and the behavioral skill set that I was learning to develop. And so I started to, because of what I had learned, I decided to start sharing it. I was an actor. I was teaching acting at the time too. So I started doing workshops in sharing what I had discovered, and in meditation. They were mostly personal transformation workshops that then I later included business people. I added NLP into it later on as well, and all sorts of personal change stuff. I created my own systems. I have the Attitude Activator, Mind Design, the Ultimate NLP Home Study course. I was certifying people in NLP all around the world. And so my clients or my customers or the people who came to me at the time were from every single walk of life you can imagine. Top administrators, CEOs, entrepreneurs, all the way down to whatever there was. I've had pig farmers, beekeepers, librarians, teachers, accountants, salespeople, everybody, anyone and everyone who wanted to come to me could come to me. I had a 100-acre retreat center where people would come. They'd spend anywhere from 3 days to a few months with me and learn. And we did that for about a decade at the retreat center. A lot of corporate training, business training for people, would go in and teach different topics, how to communicate, how to get unstuck, how to, make employees more productive. But I've been doing it now for over 42 years. And, and primarily it's about transformation. See, there's 3 things you can do, really. I mean, you can transmute, you can change your energy to another form of energy. You can bring something that's invisible to the visible. You can take an idea and make a tangible product out of it. You can transform something, change it. You can transcend it. And so my work really is the message is that you can transcend your problems and limitations, and you can discover who you authentically are inside, deep within, because the work is from within to without. Everybody thinks it's from without to within, but it's from within to without, or as above to below, so that you can be, do, and have. And when you are it, when you be it, then you start doing the right things. You don't have to try things and struggle to do things and do all the efforting that most do. By the way, the notion of massive action is a huge myth. It's just wrong. It's a lie. Does it work? Yeah. Like if you have to get your car out of a mud, you might take massive action once or twice, but you don't have to keep doing massive action. Your car is out of the mud. Now you have to do that keeps it moving consistently, and usually that's small efforts. See, what I discovered after all of the stuff that I'd gone through is that the law of the universe is the law and of your brain, because my background is whole brain learning and accelerated learning, is the law of least effort and conservation. The brain works by doing the least it has to do in order to keep you alive, keep you doing whatever to protect you. And it conserves energy in doing it. It streamlines processes. It makes things habitual. That's why once you learn a habit, you've got the habit. And it seems like it's hard to overcome the habit because the brain does what it does. The notion of self-sabotage is a bogus method. Bogus notion, because the brain doesn't sabotage you. You don't have a person inside your head going, I'm going to screw you up. You're going to want to do that, but I'm going to do something different. Your brain does what it learned to do, and it's designed to keep you alive and to protect you and to have you reproduce. So it's doing what it learned, not sabotaging you. It's doing things that you consciously don't like or would want to do differently, but it's doing what it knows. So if it learned to smoke or overeat or bite your fingernails or worry or self-talk poorly or believe stupid things that harm you, that's what it does. Then you come along and go, I want to change that. And the brain just keeps doing what it did and what it did and what it did and what it did. And you go, sabotaging me. Not sabotaging you. It's actually keeping you alive and serving you and protecting you the way it's designed to do. And then you're creating this conflict of your brain. You're down on your... So my job is to help people align with themselves, discover that things can really be easy and fun and delightful. They can discover who they are and transform or even transcend, which is a completely different thing than transforming. But yeah, they can transcend, and they can do it playfully because and I'll wrap up with that. But as a child, you learned all these wonderful things through play, through laughter, through exploration, through pretend. Then you got to school and they said, okay, forget all that, be real, stop imagining, and now do these things. And they gave you tests, and if you didn't get the right answer, they marked them wrong. So you ended up feeling poorly about yourself. If you did the tests and you got good grades, you might feel like rewarded, but there was just, you have to know the right answer. You have to be the right person. I mean, we were conditioned. Civilization conditions us to be social members more than anything else, so that we toe the line and get along, and just the way it is. But if you go back to learning how to change through play and delight and curiosity and fascination the way you did as a child, you'll learn faster, quicker, and change more, because the journey should be enjoyable on your way to the destination, not just the destination. When I was a kid, I'd get in the car with my parents and I'd get down on the floor, and every 5 or 10 minutes I go, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And I hated it. And I would say even years later, I'd say, I don't mind being somewhere, but I hate getting there. Well, the point is if whether you have 1 million lives or just one life, you should love getting there. You should enjoy getting there. And where you help so many people, Tom, is the notion of gratitude. And because when you're grateful, you fall into the present. You're grateful for what you are right now. That's part of how you enjoy this journey. Never put off for tomorrow what you can do today. And that is your delight and your play and your pleasure. Because even if you got a problem, if you laugh your way through it, and you smile your way through it, you feel good with a problem's not so bad anymore. It's just another thing that you may have to deal with, but you can do it in a delightful way. And so that's my story.
I got it. I just, you mentioned transmutation, and that comes out of Napoleon Hill. Mm-hmm. And that's taking that energy and redirecting it to manifest something other. I totally under the transformation, which, a lot of people say, which transformation, but transcending is I really, really that resonated with me, that transcending, because if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me, you're more versed in this than I am for sure. But that transcending, I think, is an alignment of the laws. Is that what you're saying? Is it we transcend to a new destination? We're in alignment with the universal laws that are out there, or
Let's think of it. Let's use an analogy that most of us would know. We have opinions. We have
okay,
different religious opinions, political opinions, whatever. You and I can. I have a right hand and a left hand. You and I can have opposite opinions. And for you, your opinion is absolutely valid and correct based on what you know, based on your conditioning, based on what you're paying attention to, and the same is true with me, right? So now we can either understand where we have common ground and have some overlap and decide, okay, there's some disagreement and there's some agreement, but let's agree to agree or let's agree to disagree, right? Or we could just come at each other and go, you're an idiot, and do this thing. Or you can go above it. You can transcend it and realize that both are just opinions and neither of them are true. Both of them are just subjective experience, and it's not right or wrong, either one of them. It's being beyond it so that you can look at it without judging it, without labeling it, without looking at one or the other and going, well, Tom is right and Rex is wrong, or Rex is right and Tom is wrong. It's, wow, look at those people, with their opinions and how they behave, and being open, just being an observer without being hooked by it. And so you can transcend. Some people call it enlightenment. Some people will say it's a satori experience, that you have these moments of flashes of awareness. But truly, and I've said this forever, that exploration is the doorway to adventure, because life should be an adventure and you have to be willing to explore and be curious. So the moment you say you're wrong, or that's right, or I'm right and you're not right, then you're no longer exploring. You're not, and so curiosity and awareness are the keys to transformation. Because if you're open and curious, and you can become aware of hey, you know what, I'm hooked right now. You can choose to be unhooked. You can get unhooked, and you can go beyond. So this is, you have the right attitude yourself. Don't wait for others to make you happy. Absolutely, Jay.
Thanks for jumping on, Jay. Good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah.
That goes back to some of my teachings from Bob Proctor, and I know you very familiar with these entities out there. But one of the things that I really culturally we have been squashed, the thinking of having a fantasy like a child, right? That childlike fantasy that we have, and that gets squashed, and I try to get people back to that state, because that brings a whole different level of energy and emotion, that exploration, and it creates creativity. And unfortunately, in our culture and our education, that has been squashed. It's been squashed. And I think that's what I try to get people, think back to when you were a child. Tom Ginn, fantasy was a pirate. I played pirate, and I had the sword and all that. And it was as real as you and I looking at each other right now. But what happens, that gets squashed, and that creativity gets pushed down. And I just loved what you said, that child energy, being happy. And that's a state that we can create. And I'm excited to hear that, because many people think fantasies and being childlike is, I'm beyond that. I'm 62 years old. Why should I be like a child? Our power's in our childness, as I call it. So I appreciate what you said.
Very beautiful. Well, you can transcend more easily through meditation, meditative practices, living. Now it's a buzzword. It's become a brand, mindfulness, but it's been around for eons. It's nothing new, but it's really wonderful practice, because the more aware you become without getting hooked by things, you can move through life and you see it for what it is. Right now, we blame our government, we blame God, we blame religion, we blame this person, we blame our spouses, our children, our parents, and we have these reasons for everything and this excuses for this, and none of that really matters. I mean, because it is what it is. Before humans were on the planet, things happened. There were earthquakes, fires, lightning strikes, animals killed each other. Floods happened, wiped out entire areas, forest fires burned, and nobody was there to call it a good or bad day or right or wrong event.
Yeah,
Humans came along and then said, this sucks. That fire just destroyed my hut, and it had my fur my fur coat in it and my tools, my weapons, so that's a bad day. This is bad. We because consciousness can do this. This is the beautiful thing about us, is we can evaluate. That is part of what we do. Sadly, we do that with prejudice. we look at other people and we judge them. We look at ourselves and judge us. We take circumstances and events and all this stuff and judge it. And the definition of fear is false evidence appearing real, right? I mean, you've heard that before.
Sure.
Everything is false evidence appearing real. Everything. Yeah. If it's a good day, a bad day, if a circumstances comes up, if a bank is closing your house, it's a bad day.
And it's our own perspective, right? Our own lens, how we look at things.
So there's a couple things you can do. You can transcend it all and become a witness to it, and know that this is how life is. It's a game, and move through it without being triggered. You can be free of your triggers. You can live qualitatively differently. You can live in bliss and celebration, and moment to moment, it kind of eternally in the present, knowing who you are as an authentic self, a spirit having a physical body kind of thing. Or you can transform it or transmute it. In other words, if you can't transcend, which you can, but if you don't transcend, you can always change it. So if you're predominantly thinking negatively, you can shift to predominantly thinking positively. You're transforming energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed according to physics. It can only be transformed. So this brings up another thing. Everything that is or will be or has been always exists in an eternal present. We judge time, but other than humans, before clocks and humans came around, you could argue there is no time. It's a consciousness concept. It's hard for us to wrap our brains around, but the only moment you really have is the present. You have the past, and people bring that. We have memories of the past, but it's no longer here. I mean, something happened to me as a child. Like, I had cowboy boots when I was a kid. I don't have those cowboy boots anymore. Now, I could have them on my mantle, like some people make little baby boots in gold or whatever. You can have, mementos from your past. Well, people do that with emotional injury and good things. What do you remember? You remember the things of significance that had a high enough signal value to get wired into your brain so that it's memorable, not so good or good. And then people drag that stuff with them. They go, I'm a victim of this, or I'm a survivor of that, or when I was a kid, I was this, or something like that. You have two ways to look back on the past. One is that it was horrible and it's responsible for who you are today. Or it was wonderful and today doesn't look like that anymore. Today it's different. Then it was great. The good old days, the wonderful, boy, I thrived when I was a kid, but now look at me now. Well, some of it seems to be true because as a kid, from womb on, you and I were conditioned, and Aristotle said, if you show me the 7-year-old child, I'll show you the adult, because about the time you're 6, 7, 8 years old, your personality is pretty much established. You've been conditioned by your primary caretakers, peers, media, messages, whatever that might be. And it's been going on since the humans appeared on the planet.
Yeah. It just like in scripture, it says, give me your child for 7 years.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, that's who we are. Most people are running on that script at age 7. And I look at myself and the things you're saying to me is I just get excited to hear this, is that so many people are stuck. And I'd just like to ask you a couple questions here. So who were the most influential people that moved you down the path to where you are? We always have some place that sort of triggers that curiosity, that journey. Who might that be, or what?
Mostly they were Eastern or Western mystics. They were people like Lao Tzu, Buddha. Even more currently, I lived with Rajneesh, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, for 4 or 5 years. Swami Muktananda, Krishnamurti, Satchidananda. I mean, I get to be around all these people. Alan Watts in the West, Gurdjieff, people like that, and other thinkers. Napoleon Hill was a major influence when I was a kid. Joseph Murphy when I was, later, I guess maybe as a teenager or something. Robert Collier was a big one. There's people's names that most people wouldn't know, but Emmett Fox. You can go. I can go on and on and on. But
I may say something. A lot of people may not even know who those people are. I just encourage people to the power of transcending is really reading, in my opinion, is studying. Like Bob used to say, most people read a book, but they don't study the words. They don't put themselves in the word.
Well,
And
Bob and I share something in common. I've been reading Napoleon Hill since I was 11. Maybe, I always say, well, with the exception of about a year and a half in my life, but I would read daily. So about 55 years, it's about the same amount of time. The difference was that when I was a kid, even though I read it every day, I didn't necessarily apply it. And that was, I would read this stuff, it says, read this chapter 30 days. And I go, okay, yeah, right, that makes sense. But I didn't necessarily read it 30 days until I started doing that. And that was like after my crisis time, I fell back into meditation and I looked at what I had done. And what I have done, by the way, with whole brain learning, accelerated learning, my meditative approach, the way I've blended things for neurolinguistic programming, everything that I call mind design, people have taken my stuff and have transformed the seminar world in the last 30 years. I mean, they really, back in the old days, they were like, oh, this is crazy. He's got people laughing and dancing and singing. He's got people doing these crazy things. You're not taking therapy seriously. You should be doing it this way. And I go, yeah, but these people are transforming their lives. I have little old people rolling down hills and doing crazy stuff because, if you want to break free from your habits, you need to add some novelty and do things differently. We tell people, eat with the other hand, sleep with your head at the foot of the bed, sleep across, and everybody, oh, this is crazy. And people made fun of me in different books and different things. One book said, I said, what we're doing is consciously applying the placebo effect. That's what the goal is about, to take what normally happens, but learn how to understand it and use it. And they go, oh, look at this. This is such bogus stuff. Today, and we were talking about growing new neural pathways. Today, there's the term neuroplasticity. It didn't occur. There was no word like that back then. In the 70s and 80s, when I was fashioning my workshops and people were coming to me and I was still going. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars going to other workshops and living in meditative retreats and going off in the desert and spending 6 weeks alone in silence and things. But the thing was is that all this fashioning, everything that we were doing was designed so that people could be free and have fun and had play and discover that change doesn't have to be hard. No. It can be, but what you believe about it will determine a lot of it. And what people don't realize is where they are right today in their life is because of those beliefs, because Bob would call them paradigms. Joel Barker did the seminal work on paradigms, which was incredible. Yeah. So I blended all this stuff, created mind design in this format for transformation, both for corporations and individual people. And at the time in the 70s, there were handful of studies that you could find. You had to go to the library and you had to get the journals out and you had to, go through them physically. Now there's something like 45,000 of these studies about placebo and visualization and the effectiveness of shifting your attitude and the effects of gratefulness or mindfulness or meditation on people. Back then, no. So it was kind of like being a pioneer or paddling upstream to get people to understand that, even then we would call our stuff play shops and people go, what is a play shop? So we dropped it after all. So we just call it workshops, trainings, and seminars because people go, I don't know what to, another guy, Dave Dobson, called his stuff play shops, and then I don't think he ever changed it. He kept the title, so that was good on Dave. We abandoned it because it was just had to answer the question too many times.
I got something I want to go back to. You mentioned something here, and I think it's an area a lot of people don't understand. You talked about meditation and those kind of things. Being still, quietness, meditation, whatever you want to call it. My wife does this every year. She's done it for 20 straight years, 14 days of silence and solitude at a retreat in a little glass hut overlooking a lake. She does it in January. She loves the winter. She loves that. She does her writing and stuff there. And I'm starting to get into the importance of being still, learning how to be right now without being distracted, even with the noises outside or anything like that. How important, I see this with people, they're up like this all the time. What do you do to help people bring themselves down so that they can start feeling the energy that will give them a clarity and a level of awareness? What do you help people understand how to be still?
I mean, that's a great question, Tom. It really is, and there are many different ways that you can approach that. One is through stillness, through meditation. And when I'm still, when I go into the desert, there's no media, there's no papers, there's no books, there's nothing. You're just still. And when the first time I did that, after a day or two, I was just ready to go crazy. I mean, you just want to blurt something out, you want to hear something, and but then what you would find is that what arises in you is this stillness, this presence. And when the stillness arises, there's this incredible energy that can arise. And when it came time to go back and talk, I didn't want to talk ever again. I was like, I just soon be silent for the rest of my life. So one is stillness, and the scripture says, be still and know. And so there is something about getting still and releasing. Again, and Jesus also said in scripture, he said, forgive, your faith has made you whole, repent and sin no more. Well, some people will take that to mean different things, but I take it to mean repentance typically means turn your back, stop doing what you were doing. And sinning typically in the original language meant to make a mistake. It didn't mean doing something bad, and suffering for it. It meant if you make a mistake, it can cause suffering. So correct your mistake. Forgive, change, let go, release. Don't even, stop judging it. Turn and don't do what you were doing anymore and move in a new direction. And then faith, I don't really like the word faith. Hill used it a lot, in Napoleon Hill, but really I like the word certainty. You can say that David approached Goliath, with faith that God would prevail. He said, this day God will prevail. But that's certainty. There's a difference between what we think of as faith. It's like people pray, they beg God, they go, please do this, change this, heal this, do this, and they go, I have faith, but they're hoping and they're wishing to stand on faith. If you look at Noah built the ark when there was no evidence that there was a flood. I mean, whether this is real or not is up to everybody to decide. But in terms of the story, Daniel turned his back on the lions when they were right there in the cage with him. David came out and said, this day God is going to be victorious. When there was nothing, God would say, you want the water, go dig the ditches. So when there was no evidence of anything, their faith was that they were certain that they would get what they intended or what they had asked of God, but they had to do something first. They had to act. What's the first action a person has to take? There's this saying, a journey of 1,000 steps begins with a single step, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with it. The first step is the decision to go on the journey. That's a thought. The first step, the thing that you can do is to think and to think differently. So you can release and you can let go. How do you do that? How do you drop a pencil? How do you drop anything? You just drop it. Now, as I said, if you can't transcend, if you can't release, then you must shift. So if you're thinking mostly negative, the task is to then stop doing that and think mostly positive. Now, how do you do that? Well, somebody say take massive action. Well, you can't really. I mean, you can have a transformative event. Catastrophe can change you. Scrooge was changed overnight, based on his dreams or his fears. But again, in lieu of that, you chop down a tree by making consecutive small actions, and yet you can fell in a large tree. What do you need? You need the proper equipment, essentially, an axe, and the persistence or consistency and commitment to do it. So if you want to change your thinking, you can do it, but you do it as it comes up. And that's where awareness comes in. If you're not aware that your thinking is causing you problems, then you're not going to do anything about it. So it's like a pebble in your shoe. If there's no pebble in your shoe, you don't notice the shoe. Put a pebble in your shoe and suddenly you notice the pebble, you notice the pain or the suffering. Or if your shoe is too tight, you notice it, but you don't walk around thinking about your shoes. So what happens is these barbs that happen in life are negative thoughts. When something happens, the bank is foreclosing, you look at your checkbook and it's got a negative balance. Well, that's false evidence appearing real, right? Because first off, and what happens really when somebody looks at their bank, their check, their statement, they go, oh my God, I'm never gonna be. Your brain actually squirts chemicals, which create stress and sadness and anger or frustration. I mean, it's a neurochemical electrical process that goes on. It's conditioned based on triggers that happen in the world, and which is different because you could look at the negative balance and go, oh my God, I'm free, but you don't, because that's not how you've been conditioned to think. But anytime you get this less than glorious pebble, in your life, whether it's another person, somebody gives you the finger on the highway, it's another person. We react out of our conditioning like that. Boom, somebody gives you a finger, you go right back, right? But if you become aware that that's an opportunity to transform, that you don't have to do that, then that becomes not only an opportunity, but a blessing. That's something to truly be grateful for. Thank that person, because that person did something where a button goes off in me. I'm going to blame them typically. But if I stop blaming them and I stop excusing myself and I stop doing all that and go, what is it? Why am I reacting that way? And why you don't really care about it. You don't need to deny it. But if I can go, it has nothing to do with them. I got angry independent of them. It could be something else. It could be my bank cook. It could be my children doing something. It could be my dog. It could be anything will trigger that. And guess what? We get angry pretty much the same way all the time. The brain has that route. That's conservation of energy. And it is the law of least effect. Get angry about different things, but you get angry the same way pretty much. You get horny the same way, happy the same way, curious the same way, frustrated the same way. Our brain travels pathways, neural pathways. It's not sabotaging you again. It's doing what it did. And so we learned this through growing up, to feel bad about ourselves, to feel less glorious. Oh, here's the thing. When you came into this world as a clean little baby, not knowing anything, maybe some neurological, DNA baggage, some genetic baggage, far less, we believe today, than what we used to think. In the same way that we used to think that the brain was a jar, and that once it's filled up, the only thing you can do is empty it. So once the brain got to be a certain age, it was just you just start sloughing off. Now we know, again, neuroplasticity. We've been telling this people stuff like this for mystics knew this thousands of years ago. The only thing neuroscience does today is validate what they knew years ago. I've been talking about it for 40 years. And half of this I learned from an acting coach who had nothing to do with brain science. She just was very smart. She's just like, hey, your brain works this way when you're trying to learn this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I
am a student right now. I am just taking what you're doing, and it's triggering a different perspective of things I've been learning and teaching. And I hope everybody that watches this live or in that just starts rethinking their thinking. And I think that's a process. But I have one specific question. One of my clients turned me on. I've learned as much from my clients as hopefully I've given them, and it's amazing how that works in that relationship of growth. Because no one's perspective is right? So no one's right. Because if you think you're right, you'll eventually be proved wrong. There's always a better way. This is how I look at things. So, but one of my clients, young man out of New York, very successful football player, and he turned me on to a gentleman. I don't know if you know Dr. Miles Monroe.
I think I know the name. I don't know if I've.
Yeah, he's from the Dominican Republic, a spiritually based person, but he talks about the power of vision. And I've been studying helping people start accomplishing, and we'll get into your book here in a minute, that life that they want. He gave me a perspective that really shifted something, and you can comment on it or whatever you want to say, but I come to find out from Dr. Miles Monroe, the power of the vision, the outcome before you seek it. It's clear, you're emotionally tied to it. It's real, that fantasy, going back to that childlike state. And he made this statement, and I started applying it, that goals don't work.
Right.
They don't work because the first obstacle, most people quit or downsize or don't do anything, right?
Right.
So what's your thought on helping anybody out there trying to get where they want to go? What's your position in about having that manifestation of the outcome you seek before you obtain it, and versus goals?
Oh, I love it.
Goals don't work. That's that massive action, right?
Well, right. Again, it goes back to be, do, and have, and goal oriented is trying to do something in order to have something so that you become something. Being it first means you'll do whatever you do from that being and then you'll have it as a consequence. And then people make being it the goal. It's like, be enlightened means to drop everything, and they go, how do I drop everything? And then they make that they can make that a problem. The question is a beautiful question, because it is. I mean, it's so accurate in that from ancient times, mystics have said, and I concur. Not that my agreement with mystics means anything, but from my experience, from my life. And I was starting to say it earlier, and that is that when you come in and you're conditioned, what's conditioned is laid over this kind of pristine, beautiful, wonderful, infinite possibility. You have infinite opportunity, infinite possibility when you come into the world, and you can't communicate. You don't know how to read or write. You can't even walk. You just lie there, and yet you can somehow make your needs known. You can whine, cry, or whatever, and people will meet your needs. And the conditioning process begins in the womb, essentially. Whether you have a million lives or one life, I don't care. It's like, this is the one that we're talking about right now. So you come in, your authentic self before you got conditioned is magnificent. It's wonderful. So what do people do? They live well beneath their elite. They live so far beneath who they are. You've got all the resources necessary to make any change just right within you. And from your experiences, instead of complaining about and whining about it and surviving them, they've created opportunities for you to learn and to transform and to change things. The whole thing is making adjustments and corrections. When people drive down the road, you never drive down a straight line. You don't even walk a straight line. You veer to the left and the right when you're riding a bike or a cycle or a car. You're constantly making micro adjustments outside of consciousness. Sometimes you're aware of them, and once in a great while, you may have to steer out of the way. That may be that massive action, right? But you don't constantly be steering out of the way, or you wouldn't get anywhere. And so there's just constant little adjustments as you move forward. So you're moving towards your destination, but you're constantly going kind of left and right. Sometimes you make a wrong turn, so you course correct, you get back on, or there's a detour and you have to go. Right? The trick is this. The lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. The fact that you can't see your authentic self yet or know who you are yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. In the same way that what mystics would tell you is that everything, because energy can't be created or destroyed, that everything you want, need, must have already exists. In other words, when the Wright brothers were creating a plane, everything that they needed to fly existed back at the Big Bang. It existed at the beginning. They may not have had paper or plastics. That all had to come along, through human consciousness to be developed. But all that was necessary for plastic and for rubber and for metal and for existed at the beginning of time. So conceptually, you could argue that who you are, that authentic self, is always present. And who you want to be is always already there. Can't be created, can't be destroyed. It's already existing. So you live from the feeling of that person already being the person you want to be. You live from the goal already, the result. Instead of getting there, you live from the end result of the goal. What is it that I want? I want $1 million. So now you say, I am a millionaire, and you live from the place of being a millionaire, whatever it might be. And if you transform yourself and you be it, so that now you feel it with that certainty. And how do you condition yourself? It has to have a high signal value. Kind of like radios in your car, you have to tune to a certain frequency, correct? So 101 is different than 102.1, and 102.1 is different than 107.6. Those are different frequencies. And when you're driving cross country, there's a signal value, and at a certain point you can go outside of the signal value and it starts to fade, or now because of digital radio, you just lose it. In the old days, you could kind of come and go and analog, but now you just pretty much lose it. And another one will come in, that's on that same frequency. Your brain works through high frequency, meaning you remember significant times in your life that were both negative and positive because of significant emotional experience attached to those. The day-to-day living that you don't remember much is because it's pretty much all the same. So if your life is filled with lots of negative stuff of high signal value, that's the stuff that you tend to remember and that you tend to drag with you. And as I always tell people, is if you wore every piece of clothing you've ever had in your life, you wouldn't be able to move right now.
Absolutely.
Aware every memory of every bad thing in some ways, and go, this is who I am. I have all this bad stuff. And I have all these reasons why I can't do what I want to do. And I have all these, excuses, or other people are preventing me. There's all sorts of kind of baggage that they have. So the thing is to divest yourself and understand that transformation can be quite simple, and it can be quite enjoyable, and you can get to your destination easily and effortlessly when you assume you're already there and backtrack rather than trying to get there. So once you are it, everything else falls in place. If you are it, if you are a millionaire, guess what you're doing? You're doing those things. If you're a smart millionaire, a wise millionaire, you're doing those things that continue to make you money. You're doing those things that you conserve or you save. You behave differently than somebody who's not a millionaire. So what the person wants to do is, in their head, in their heart, in their being, go there first and live from the feeling of being that, and let that inform what you do. And then you will have what you have. Setting a goal and say, I'm going to go towards that, means you don't have it.
Yeah.
And if
I was going to make a comment on that. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Well, if you don't have it, you know that you don't have it. And what the brain does is, or the law of attraction, if you want to call that, or the law of vibration, or whatever you'd like to call it, the brain, if you say, I want $1 million, think about that for a second, it means you don't have $1 million. If you say, I want another $1 million, it still means you don't have that $1 million. And I hate to use money as the only example, but it usually most people can grasp this. That is, if there's a chasm between where you are, your present state, and your desired state, and you notice the gulf between I can figure this out for camera, but if you notice the gulf between the two, what you continue to perpetuate is the gulf.
Yeah.
In order to be in the desired state, let's see, here's the desired state. From the present, you have to be here. That's how you get there, is to be here. It's literally this way.
Yeah.
We think it's that way. We draw it to us by changing, what we focus on and who we think we are. We stop believing the false evidence appearing real, which is that there's this gulf between who we are and what we want, and who we are and what we can accomplish, and who we are and what we achieve, and we become it. When we become it, it opens the doorway for everything else. And most people don't know how to do this. That's why I've been doing what I've been doing for 40 years. I mean, that's why
I am getting a different, I just love what you're saying. But do you know Glenn Morshower?
I do.
Glenn in our Grow Live Academy comes in, and he just brings some things you're talking about, that experiencing it at an emotional level, the outcome that you're seeking. He says goals don't work because you put yourself in conflict. Says right. You don't have it. Now you're in that conflict space versus I have it. Your behavior starts manifesting itself to support that vision. And when he said that gave me another trigger of thinking is that, I can see that goals can be a conflict by themselves. They put you in a conflict. So be it. He says it's your nature to be. You don't have a goal to become more loving, right?
Right.
You don't have a goal to become more loving. It's already your nature. Make it your nature. Your nature is to be successful. Your nature. So I just love what he says in that area. Is any comments on that? What I just shared.
Well, I love Glenn. He always brings great value, and I have no disagreement. I absolutely agree.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about your book here. I'm going to bring this up, because I think, I tell you what, time is. Like I say, we can be here for quite a while. Let's talk about your book, Life on Your Own Terms.
Keep it there. I was going to say, keep it there for a minute while I talk about it. That's great. You can take it down. I just wanted to do something off camera, and that was shut down one of my business phones, so I can over in the office. I wrote the book because a lot of people just don't know how easy it is to change, and I wanted to demonstrate to people that if drop by drop the tub fills, You don't have to, it may take longer, but it fills. And when you eat a meal, you don't shove everything into your face at one time and swallow it and be done. And you don't eat only once a day. You eat maybe multiple. So some people eat once a day, but you may eat multiple times a day, and you eat, more times than that. You get nutrition in order to be alive. And so the book is about how you can have nutrition in your spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, financial life, and to create the kind of life you want. And it is about living from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is about how you be first, and then do, and then you have. The nature of placebos is such that, and most people don't get it. They just don't understand the placebo effect. They think in terms of the placebo, like the placebo being a pill, or the placebo being a procedure, or the procedure being like a rock, that they go, I keep this rock with me and I feel safe. And people go, well, there's nothing in the rock. And that's right. It's not about the rock. It's not about the pill. It's not about the procedure. It's about what we believe about it, because that determines what you're bound to find. Our expectations shape the world. If you expect to find something, you're more apt to find it than if you don't. You might be disappointed. It's kind of, I've said for two things for over 40 years. One is, what stops most people? I asked this in seminars, workshops all around the world for 40 years, and they'll give me all these answers. And the bottom line is, it's a thought. It's a mental packet of energy that apparently, you can't see. We can start to record them now through, different means, but it's a mental packet of energy, and most people stop. And when do they stop? Before they ever start. They talk themselves out of business, out of relationships, out of going across the room and meeting somebody, out of, their diets and healthcare, whatever it might be, before they even begin, or during the goal pursuits, because then they encounter something and they go, this isn't worth it, or it's too hard, or I don't know how. More thoughts.
Yeah. I got a question, the power of words and the power of thought. Words have power, and a lot of times people don't even realize the words that they think or what they say. I came to this, and just I'm learning from you. I'm asking it as if I was sitting in front of you as a client, and things I've learned. Napoleon Hill talks, Bob Proctor, what do you want? But ultimately, having a want doesn't really cause anything to happen,
right,
until you have what I call that emotional appeal, that desire. In that process of what do you want, what do you coach people on that emotional? How do you move yourself from the thought to the emotion? Because we're emotional creatures, and that is the fuel that moves us either backwards or forwards, depending on positive or negative. So,
well, we started to kind of go down that avenue a little bit, and it's a great question, and I'll see if I could tie everything kind of up or back together with what I was about to say too. And that is, Hill is very accurate, and it's beautiful, and I talk about Hill a lot. I've been teaching Napoleon Hill for 40 years. You said you have to have this white hot desire. So I love all the stories. And when I was younger, I didn't get the stories. Now the stories to me are some of the most important and potent examples of change. The book starts off with Edward C. Barnes wanting to be the partner of Edison. So he hops a freight train, dressed as a hobo, goes to see Edison to put him on notice that he is going to be his partner. And then it says in the book, what he said was not as important as the look in his eye. Edison said, I know when people have a certain look to pay attention. So I paid attention. I gave him a job as a janitor. Obviously, he was not a partner of Edison from the get-go. But this is in the chapter on desire. And Hill says, you have to make it a white-hot obsession. So did Barnes start as a white-hot obsession? He said, no, I probably started as a wish or a want. But he made it a white-hot obsession to the point where he got and left, and he went and he acted because of his white hot obsession. He had to have it. There's more to that than this, but this is the thing. I tell people all the time, I go, if you throw at a boomerang comes back, not a teacup. What you put out, you get back. If you put out a want, you get a want back. You put out a wish, you get a wish back. You put out a blame, you get a blame back. If you put out hate, you get hate back. You put out love, you get love back. It doesn't change. Hold on, I got to tell my dog to stop trying to break down the door. So I had to I put the dog down the hall. So banging the door, trying to get out, can't, right? Anyway, so he had to convert that into a white hat obsession. Not only does it become an obsession, but in his mind, he became certain that he was already the partner of Edison, because he said, I'm going to put him on notice. He didn't say, I'm going to be your partner, or I want to be your partner. Someday this will be a partner. He says he was that. So you turn the second page, if you can hear that, the dog bang in the door. But that's what people do. They bang. This dog goes bang and bang and bang until it goes, you know what? It ain't happening. And and then it may have to go out. So that may be something I need to take care of. But and if she has an accident, then it's on me. So it's not the dog's fault.
We are wrapping up here in a few minutes. So
yeah, no, and it's all good. So the point is, it became this certainty. He had to develop the certainty. And how did he do that? Well, you turn the page. This to me is the most telling part about Barnes. And the page, depending on which version of the book you read, it says for 5 years, with no outward evidence that he would ever be the partner of Edison, he worked as a janitor. But he kept inside himself alive this obsession, this that he was Edison's partner. What does that tell you? It tells you he was certain on the inside and that no evidence existed on the outside. What was the evidence? He was a janitor. False evidence appearing real. What was real? That he was already a partner of Edison. Didn't have a goal, wasn't trying to work for it. He was working as a janitor, doing what he had to do, knowing that he was a partner of Edison. And when they couldn't move the dictaphone machines, dictographs, then he said, I'll do it. And the rest became history. Edison gave him the chance. He became a partner. He died a very rich man. R.U. Darby. Think about that. The story about R.U. Darby. Stopped 3 feet from gold. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, don't give up. Don't stop. Here's the thing. False evidence appearing real. He looked, couldn't find gold. So he quit. Was there. He didn't see it. It was there under the ground, 3 feet from him. And he didn't see it. Why? Because what he saw was the absence of gold, and evidence of a lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. So he sells off his equipment. The guy goes and hires a coach. He hires a consultant. And the consultant says, no, here's the vein, dig here. And the guy became very fabulously wealthy. Well, when you read the book, R.U. Darby could have gone, okay, I'm a stupid puppy. I'm dumb. This is horrible. And lived his life in regret and going, I'm a loser. But what did he do? He went into the insurance business. So I learned never to take no for an answer. And he became very wealthy in insurance. The little girl who said, my mama needs 50 cents, in spite of the fact that some guy was ready to beat her, stood her ground. Certainty. My mama needs 50 cents. David, God will prevail today. You be it first when you're certain inside. Then everything transforms. As long as you're trying to get it to be something different, you can't. How do you do that? You do exactly what Hill said. You do exactly what Mystics is telling you. You do exactly what I'm sharing with the world. And that is, you have to change your thinking. That's the first step. You go inside, and if you can't transcend your thinking, then transmute it, transform it, shift it from I don't have it, I can't have it, or I want it, or I wish it, to I am it, I have it, this is and be certain about it. You have to develop the certainty. That creates the signal value, the high emotional value. So living in gratitude, if nothing else, you want to transform your experience today, get truly excited and truly grateful about everything in your life. Problems, difficulties, absences, false evidence appearing real, all the good stuff, all the family, all the friends, all the circumstances, everything. And then don't just list it like I'm grateful for my toes. Be thrilled for your toes. When I transformed my life, I was in meditation and I thought, I'm 25 years old. And I've never thanked my feet for carrying me through the world. And I've gone everywhere in the world. I walked all over. I've banged my toes. I've stubbed my toes. I've dropped things on my toes. I've hurt my feet. And I started to thank my toes and my toenails and my skin and the tissues and the fluids and the cartilage and this. And I couldn't stop. I went through my whole body. I laid there for hours, in this thing. And when I got out, I was like, oh my God. Because it wasn't just saying it, it was the expression of it. If all you do is say it, if all you do is give lip service to it, it doesn't mean anything. I can say I'm great. It doesn't do anything. This is why in the book Napoleon Hill, it says it has to be emotionalized. So if you want to do affirmation, I wrote an article. I mean, you can find it. It's why affirmations don't work.
Yeah.
And most of them, they can. I mean, just so you know, I do suggest affirmations, but I did seminal work on questions and how questions direct the mind. It's been people have taken the work and put it in all sorts of different books, and made millions and millions, millions of dollars off of this stuff. They work, but it's about directing the mind instead of conflicting.
Yeah.
And what that I do, you go to the end result and then ask questions about how to get there. That direct you in a way that allows you to have fun and enjoyment. In other words, if I say, Tom, want to buy my pen? You can say yes or no. If I say, do you know how delighted you would be when you buy my pen? You can say, no, I don't. In which case, I'm happy to tell you. Or you could say, yes, I do know how delighted I would be when I buy your pen. And then the answer would be, well, then go ahead and buy it. Why not? And then if you whatever. But the point is, when I say, do you know how delighted you can be when you buy my pen? What's assumed in there? Buy my pen.
Yeah.
But I'm not asking you to buy my pen. I'm asking you how delighted you're going to be.
How would you feel about it?
Well, right. So what are you directing? The answer is you're going to buy the pen. The end result is I'm already living the life of the wish fulfilled. It's just how delighted, how much thrill, how much fun, how many smiles, how much play, how much good time can I have during that journey? So you be it, you do it, you have it. And then the struggles end.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that things don't change, but the way you navigate those changes is very, very different than the way most people navigate. And most people struggle and suffer, and the thought leaders are more than happy to tell them they have to take massive action or they have to work really, really, really hard. You don't. You can. Anything can happen. I mean, anything will help. That's what the placebo effect tells us. So if you expect something to be difficult, it may be difficult. You might be surprised at how easy it is, but it may be difficult. If you expect something to be easy, you may be surprised that at times it's difficult, but it's going to be easy. So set your expectations. Have certainty that you are this, and then you will accomplish it. Want it? Put it off in the future. This is why prayer is always wrong. It says, ask, believing you've received, and then you receive. It doesn't say, so you can't say, please heal, because that's saying heal, or please give me money. That's saying you don't have it. The healing hasn't occurred. You have to assume the healing or the money or the change and go, thank you. Remember, it's about, this is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. It's about thanksgiving and gladness and celebration and joy. It's not about begging and whining and going, hey, where is my stuff? False evidence appearing real. It's not there. It's always there. You only find it when you claim it.
Yeah, it goes to gratitude. Being grateful for the future that is coming, whatever that is. Being grateful now for it.
Yeah, even though you don't see it, like Edwin C. Barnes, he's still Edison's partner. He wasn't probably going around going, I'm Edison's partner. I'm with millions of dollars. I mean, he wasn't creating waves in his everyday life, as far as we know. But inside him, here's the thing. How does a millionaire walk? How does a millionaire talk? How does a millionaire use the phone? How does a millionaire eat? What does a millionaire do? How do they drive? How do they sleep? How do they talk when they talk? What does a millionaire dress like? I mean, you can say, well, they have expensive clothing. But the point is, if you assume the identity of this person and you begin to imagine how you would walk and how you are walking and talking as that, this is why I said the acting coach, you can learn more from acting, and why Glenn can talk about what he is, because if you assume to be a character and you live from that character,
yeah,
it's different than
you've probably read Stella Adler's book.
Well, that's a great book too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Stella Adler. I mean, there's a lot of different approaches, but what you said earlier, when you played to be a pirate, you were the pirate. Now, that didn't mean that a ship manifested in front of you or that there were other real pirates to cut you down, but in your mind, you were the pirate. Now, if you apply that kind of reality to any of your goals, that's how the transformation happens. We were trained out of that so that we could be good worker bees.
Yeah. Well, Rex, I tell you what, I'm grateful you live right down the road from me.
Yeah.
But seriously, we'll have to have a burrito and talk some more. But at the
Because we
shack,
both know one of the best food trucks in town, in your
yeah,
town.
you got it, you got it. So, but one of the things, we're, gosh, I tell you, an hour goes in a hurry. Um,
Well, if you're
Closing out today,
huh?
I just want to make sure people know, your website. They can get a hold of you there. Your book, your workshops,
Oh yeah.
all your offerings, everything in there.
And
Or they
you
can.
know what? Here's what I would say: if you liked what you've heard, then jump in, dive. Take some action on it. Don't just let it be information that you do nothing with. And I do have programs. We have programs that we are. People are joining us right now in the Ultimate NLP Home Study course. It's the platinum standard for NLP programs and training. So I'm happy to say that. By the way, in the book, let me say this because I want to give people a gift who have the book. If you got the book, the hardcover or the soft cover from Amazon, take your receipt code and go to my website, which is rexsikes.com/book. So it's rexsikes.com/book. Take that receipt number that you got, put it in a little box there, just follow the instructions, and I'll gift you a $497 value training on the mastery loop, which is about how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your pocketbook, any talent or skill that you want to do. It's how we learn to learn without it being a problem or an issue. It's not just about memorizing, which is what you learned in school. It's about how do you actually behaviorally transform yourself. And that's the point of directed questions too, is that if it doesn't show up in your behavior, if your mindset doesn't change and you keep doing the same things that you've always done, well, you keep doing the same thing over and over again. You'll keep doing the same things you've always done. So, but this is an opportunity for you to learn how to break from that, or break through from that, break out from that, and begin to do the things that you want to do, so that your life becomes the kind of life that you're meant to live. And really, what it's about is discovering how just truly incredible you already are,
Yeah.
without noticing it. So it's time to notice it and to claim it and to live from that.
Well, my friend, I've got pulled some nuggets out that gave me a new level of awareness, and I just love this thing called growth. And we're all at different stages of experiences and everything like that, and uh, like I said, I'm honored and humbled to have you here as a guest today. Being a colleague in the same space, I learned a lot. So I'm just going to put you in the back room. Any other parting thoughts, or we're good?
You can light a lit. Here's the thing. You can light your own candle, and when you do, you can light a million candles off of that candle, but yours has to be lit first. So when you live your life lit. Live, love, laugh, celebrate, have a marvelous time. Live the life that you can, because it's a life that you've been given. You only get one go around, as far as we know. So make the most of it. And how do you do that? Relax and drop into it. So with that, everybody, thank you. And I'm humbled to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rex. Well, I tell you what, I've spent 7, 8 years studying just the tip of the iceberg of what was saying, and just brought a new level of awareness, a new level of understanding of what I've come to learn. But I got a long ways to go. I hope everybody out there today, will seek out what Rex is teaching. And with that all said, I'm so grateful for this moment. Gratitude is the bricks between the mortars, is the mortar between the bricks of life. No matter what the difficulties, no matter what the challenges that we have, go to a place of gratitude. Go deep on gratitude, and it watch what it does. It opens what I call the gateways of life to more joy, more peace, and happiness. And with that all said, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next week.